Welcome to Dave Talks Some More, the podcast at the intersection of humor and, Hey, I'm your host, Dave, and together we'll explore a riveting world of mundane topics with unparalleled indifference. So get ready for a riveting journey through,
whatever.
This is Dave Talks Some More. All right, far out. I didn't think we'd ever make it back.
Yes,
it's been damn near a month. I think our last show was June the 1st.
we got lost in the space-time continuum.
No, we got lost in summer. We got lost in let's see, one of them was Father's Day.
Dave got lost in summer.
No, we got lost. I was here every week, and you had stuff you had to do, and so I was. That's a lie.
That's totally a lie.
I seem to remember it differently.
I was ready to roll last week and the week before.
We don't need to get into the details of why
we're here.
Look, it's episode 71. I've been here for all of them, so we are good to go. How are you, Sean?
I'm great.
It's been 28 days later. We could make a movie about that.
Yes, and we could have a bunch of different alternate movies that all have 28 something in the process. Yeah.
What you've been up to for the last 20. That's really what the show needs to be, is everything that you've done over the last 28 days. Got chased by zombies.
Or 28 hours.
Yeah. Well, that I want to hear about. That actually sounds like that's more interesting. How much of that? Look, folks, unfortunately, y'all miss out by not being here 10 minutes before we start taping.
Yes.
Because that's when the best stories get told. It's like, no way I'm putting this on the podcast, but let me tell you what happened. And both of us had a story like that, which we can't put on the podcast. Can you give me anything? You were in New Orleans.
The truth is that we really ought to start. We just need enough subscribers. We need to start some premium content. And that would be the great way to put all of that on there, just for our exclusive users to hear all the nitty gritty of our lives that we don't want to tell anyone.
How much money do I need to put in your pocket for you to rewind the last 10 minutes and tell us the premium content?
Not much. I'm a cheap whore.
You're getting called all kinds of names. Now you're owning them yourself. It's
exactly.
Bad news.
Yes. I got to go to New Orleans and see a family wedding. So my daughter-in-law's sister, my daughter-in-law is a Brennan, and we went down.
Like a Brennan.
A Brennan. We went down for a big Catholic Brennan wedding, and so it was a lot of fun, and we had a great time had by all, and I got to go to Pat O's for the first time since 1986.
Wow.
The last time that I was in Pat O's, I was carried to the front door by two big security guards. And there was a fence railing just on the edge of the sidewalk, which they proceeded to lift me and throw me over into the street.
Yeah.
And
where you fit right in.
Yes. And so anyway, I got kicked out. I was obviously very intoxicated. I was there for Pike statewide in 1986 and have not been there in 39 years. So, and this time I was sober, which was nice.
Did you have a better time the first time around? Tell the truth.
I don't really remember.
In 1980. Well,
I do know. I do know. Have you ever heard of the Dungeon? It's like a famous bar in the quarter. I don't even know if the Dungeon is still there, but it was there for years. It's like this underground biker, bar, and there's just a lot of stuff that goes on in there. I remember in 86, before I ever went to the Dungeon, I had a chemistry professor, advanced chemistry, when I was in high school, and he was telling me that he had been to the Dungeon one time, and he was a recent graduate of Millsaps, and he was a KA, and so I mean he was not too far from my age.
He was grooming you.
Well, no, he was not. No. But he was like, man, I was in there, and there were this chick and this dude, and she was up on the bar stool, and they were having sex while she was sitting on the bar stool, And so I was like, so we went down for Pike, stayed wide, and I was like, man, we got to go to the dungeon. You know, I mean, what good 19-year-old wouldn't want to do that, right? So we went in there, and I just remember that it was clear from the moment that we walked in there that we were not welcomed.
Was it the sweater vest?
I mean,
was it the khaki trousers?
Well, we weren't the sweater vest, but we definitely had the whole, frat boy vibe going.
Sure.
I mean, it was Pike statewide. So, I mean, back then we actually had the Pike haircut, and so, the fraternity T-shirt, whatever. I mean, wasted out of our brains. I mean, we drove down there. We left on a bus out of Jackson to New Orleans, and we had cans, like trash cans of whoop juice in the bus that we were drinking copious amounts of.
Sure. Sure, of course.
After about 10 minutes.
It's called pre-gaming now.
Yeah,
but yeah.
After about 10 minutes on I-55 South in that bus, I really have not very many memories.
Right.
I do remember being in the dungeon thinking, I need to get the F out of here.
Yeah.
I remember being thrown out of Pat O's.
Right.
And then actually the next memory that I had was Sunday morning in the lobby of the hotel in the quarter. And I mean, that feeling of a, 48-hour just complete and total
binge.
Yes. And I all I could do was just barely keep my eyes open with sunglasses inside thinking, God, I had a great time.
I mean, were you throwing up in Pat O's, or were you being obnoxious and starting fights, or what? I mean, what?
If I threw
you
up,
weren't the only drunk guy in Pat O's. What were you doing that had you hauled out?
Why'd you have to go ask that? I mean,
Well,
wasn't the story good enough?
The
just
story's
for me
good. This is the premium content.
How do you? How in the hell do you get kicked out of Pat O's? Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so I got kicked out of Pat O's because I was being stupid, and I did something stupid. I kind of gave this little woman, a chick, a girl, whatever, a little tap on the ass that I did not know. Well, she said something. She wasn't happy, so they told me to get out. Well, I left. Okay.
You admitted?
Hold on.
You admitted to this?
I'm admitting to this. 39
No,
years.
I'm saying at the time you were like, yeah, I did that.
I think the guy saw me do it.
Oh.
Okay. Well, so here's what I did. So I snuck back in. Okay, because I'm like, everybody's in Pat O's. I mean, they're all out in there, and
that's
I'm
where
like,
the party is.
Right. And so I came in with two girls that were down there from Ole Miss.
Oh God.
So
this was going to be your dungeon experience in Pat O's.
So I came back in, I was like, I told them what happened. And they were like, well, come on, you just come in with us, and maybe they won't, recognize you, whatever.
Right, because you were only here 15 minutes ago.
So
no way.
Me and one of the girls' name was Tara. Anyway, Tara, myself, and this other girl, we go in, and we're walking in, and they're like, so what exactly did you do again? And I was like, so I hit this girl on the ass, and I kind of tapped my friend on the ass, who she didn't care. I mean, we were just messing around. It wasn't. And so the bouncer sees me do this, and that's when, of course, I got picked up and carried out and tossed outside. So and deservedly so. I mean,
what kind of world is this when you can't spank somebody at Pat O's when everybody's drunk? I thought that was the point of getting drunk at Pat O's.
Well, the good thing
everybody loses all.
The good thing is that I was not doing any spanking in the dungeon, because I'm afraid that if I had done any spanking in the dungeon, I may not have made it out alive.
Well, that's the story you cut short, because you're down there with your fraternity brothers.
Yeah,
they don't want you there.
No, they did not want us there.
I mean,
so
how long did y'all stick around?
Not long.
You didn't see any.
No, I didn't see any
thrills.
sex, fornication. No, not in the dungeon, at least. Yeah, no.
Yeah, well,
I mean, you are in New Orleans.
Well, you were probably a good enough problematic drinker where you could handle your high.
Yeah, I definitely could.
Yeah, I mean, I
was a professional drug addict and alcoholic.
Yeah, well, you'd leveled up your game. I never leveled up my game to the point where I could handle. I would get to the point where about 1:30 in the morning, I'd be looking for some cool breeze by an air conditioner or an open car window, and I'd be doing this. I don't feel so good.
Well, unfortunately, as a professional, I figured out that there were certain ways that you could deal with not feeling good.
Are there?
You could find counter substances that would help,
Whoa,
counterbalance.
Okay, I don't know anything about this.
Yeah, you do. If you're doing, I'm just giving away the tips. So hopefully we don't have any beginners that are trying to become professionals. But, if you're feeling a little down, maybe, you need something a little pick you back up.
No.
If you're a little too high, you might want to come down a little bit.
What I'm talking about is nausea, and I'm not far away from bowing to the porcelain god, and I'm about to throw up my brains.
Well, occasionally, I did overserve myself. I decided to have a tequila shot glass competition with some guy one night, and we both had 2 bottles of tequila. We started, and so I, being the arrogant young little, I think I was 18 at the time, I was like, I'm gonna win this. And of course
this is the competition you want to win in life.
Right. And so we were not we didn't have shot glasses. And so what do you use in place of a shot glass if you don't have a shot glass?
Dixie cups.
I decided to use rocks glasses. And
God.
So I just filled up, and
so
I had 4 rocks glasses of tequila in the span of approximately, less than 5 minutes. It was just
Sean, that'd take you to the hospital for that.
Bam. And so the next thing I remember was not very good.
How many of your stories have the phrase "the next thing I remember"?
Well,
all of them.
So I was in the back seat of this car, and my girlfriend was trying to get me out of it. And one of my buddies had decided they wanted to wear my cowboy boots, so they had taken my cowboy boots. And anyway, eventually, long story short, I got my cowboy boots back, and somehow I made it inside and made it home, and I didn't have to go to the hospital. Although, in this day and age, if I had seen someone do something stupid like that, I would have 100% taken them to the hospital.
Sure.
Clearly, I had alcohol poisoning.
Clearly. Well, at least you weren't driving. So
this is true. I was definitely not. I was not capable of driving that
right.
night.
Even a professional like you has to know his limits.
Yeah, I did know my limit that
So
night.
this time around in 2025, surely you didn't.
So we went. We had a great.
You couldn't top that.
We had a great time. Well, I will say this: we had a number of people last night getting into the Uber to go back to the hotel because we were staying in the Hilton Riverside, and the entire wedding party and all the guests that were in from out of town were there, and so we had a number of people in the Uber car that I had rented, one of those big, SUV Ubers. And so we're getting in there, and we had this really nice guy. I do have a story that I want to get into about my other Uber, but we get in there. And so I said to a couple of the people getting in the vehicle, I said, now y'all drinking wine. I said, do y'all want some of these napkins? One person said, I'll have you know that I have never spilt wine on my clothes. And I was like, okay. Yeah, and the other person said, I don't need any kind of napkins. I will not spill any wine. And I was like,
here we go.
Okay, here we go. So we get in the vehicle, and we're going down. We were not on St. Charles, which is nothing but potholes everywhere. Yeah. We were actually going down Chapatulas and headed back to the hotel. And next thing you know, I hear, is there any kind of paper towels up in here? And I was like, oh my gosh. And so
it didn't take long.
Well, fortunately, our Uber driver was well equipped. He had an entire roll, and so a dress got ruined in the process, covered nothing in red, but anything but red wine. But anyway, so let me get to this other story, because I think this was really fascinating to me. So we're in an Uber. We're headed actually to the wedding, and I'm speaking to the driver he's a foreign national. And so I said, hey, where are you from? And so he said, I'm from Brazil. And he's about our age, maybe a little bit older. And I would say late 50s, early 60s. And so we just struck up a conversation. I was like, so what state are you from? And so he's from Rio Grande do Sul, which is a state on the southern.
Can you roll that G again for me?
Yeah, Rio Grande do Sul. So it's like one of the most southern states that essentially borders Argentina and Uruguay. And so I'm like, well, I said, I really want to go down there. I've wanted to go down to Argentina. And I said, it's just, Argentina is such a fascinating place because it's kind of been the world's melting pot of different, races and cultures for at least the last, 150
since 1945,
years.
Since approximately
April
April of 1945.
So you know where I'm. I mean,
this
is
a
where,
real
so
melting
this is where
pot
it's going.
in Argentina.
So he says, well, there are a lot of Germans there, and he said there's so many Germans down there that Argentina has become very white as opposed to the natural Indians of South America. And so, and I said, yes. And I said, I watched this great movie about, I think it was Eichmann that was caught.
Yeah.
It was Eichmann. And so for anyone who doesn't know who Eichmann is, he was essentially the architect of the Holocaust and really the main chief organizer of everything that went on. But anyway, so they caught Eichmann and his family. He was like he was CFO or CEO of like a manufacturing company. He was living in this little small town. So we were just chatting about that. And he said, well, there is, it's been, widely discussed when I was growing up in Rio Grande do Sul.
No, you.
Yes,
no.
he said there was this 90-year-old woman that was known locally in this very
Ava
little.
Braun.
No, that she was a natural, I guess, inhabitant of South America. But anyway, she would occasionally take food to Hitler in this town very small town that he lived in that was actually in Brazil. It was not in it was not in Argentina, which I know a lot of people believe that he was there. And so I was like, really? He goes, I mean, that's what the stories were my whole childhood growing up. And, here he was, a Portuguese-speaking Brazilian at the time, going all the way back in the 60s. And so he was telling me this, and I was just like, wow, that's pretty fascinating. I mean, to hear it from someone that grew up down there, not some, crazy conspiracy theorist that's on, the History Channel or some shit. I mean, an actual resident that grew up down there.
With people that were talking about it
exactly.
at the time in the place.
It was very fascinating to me. And then he told me, he said, and he goes, there's also a town, a different town. It's a really small village in the same state of Brazil, which is Rio Grande do Sul.
God, you do that really well.
I know, thank you. And so he said, I'm pretty certain that he was talking about Mengele because he said there was one of Hitler's, doctors that were part of the Nazis was there, and he did a lot of voluntary experiments down there when he got here from Germany.
He loved his experiments.
Well, right. So, I mean, obviously Mengele was known for the experiments, all that kind of jazz. And of course, there's all kinds of stories that have been, there were people that made an attempt to do DNA testing on some bones that they believe was Mengele. And I actually don't remember what the outcome of that was, but back to the story. He said, you can look it up and Google it. I have not done that yet because I just heard this last night, but he was telling me that in this one particular town where this Nazi doctor was doing all of these volitional experiments, that there is a crazy amount of twins that live in this town. And he said to me, if you took all of the sets of twins over the entire country of Brazil, that's about the amount of twins that you had in this small town that people say came as a after effect or a consequence of whatever these experiments that this doctor was doing down there. So I found that
it was right near the uranium.
He goes, you can
mine
look it up, and so I was like, okay, I'll look it up.
Yeah.
So
isn't that part of the plot of The Boys from Brazil?
Yes, which was
1972, 1973.
A great movie. I haven't.
Gregory Peck.
The last time I saw Boys from Brazil was I think like 1983 on HBO.
That's an old movie. When was that shot? That was 70s, wasn't it?
It was a real. It was a very. Wasn't Max von Sydow in that?
Gregory Peck's the only one that I remember.
Yeah, it was. I thought it was a great movie at the time. Of course, I was 15-year-old, going, what the hell is this movie?
Well, it sounds like a very interesting Uber driver.
It was. Well, I love Uber drivers wherever I am because they're generally speaking they're really great conversationalists.
Right. Of course, then you have ICE agents posted at your destination to pick them up. Now that you've interviewed them and you've ascertained that. Well,
I haven't divulged any of the names of my 2 Uber drivers last night, both of whom were foreign nationals for sure. But anyway, I guess maybe Tom Homan could start just taking Uber rides and saying, "Hey, where are you
saw
from?"
that he's separated from his wife, not because they're having any matrimonial trouble, but just because he's worried that he's going to be attacked and he doesn't want her to be around when it happens. Tom Homan. So, and for those that don't know, he's the head of Homeland Security and the head of ICE. And
I know we don't typically get too much into politics. But,
do we not?
But there's been a ton of stuff happening lately.
Well, it's I made my list, but yeah, that was definitely on my list. When I think about New Orleans in the summer, all I think of is the smell of rotting garbage, and what a festering dump the tourist parts of New Orleans are. And I guess y'all stayed away from that for the most part. You didn't go to Pat O'Brien's or the Dungeon.
We did
stayed
go
away
to
from the quarter. That's right. You did go back.
When we went to Pat O's, and I personally love the quarter. I know some people don't. I have a friend that had a place down there for 25, 30 years, and have stayed down there so many times on non-event weekends,
right?
And the quarter, when it's not much going on, well, at least back in the 90s after it got cleaned up, was really, really nice. I mean, there was a charm, an atmosphere, a vibe. I would say that a lot of that has left because, I mean, it's dirty. It's really, it's just, it hasn't been kept up in the last few years with all the anti-police and whatever. But it was a stark reminder when I was down there for the events that happened earlier this year, because when we were walking, we had to, walk through. We were walking down the street. We had to walk through one of those portable,
bollards and those giant barricades, I guess.
And of course, my wife was like, "What's that?" And I was like,
"Don't you remember?"
I said that was because they had to put those in there to try and stop people from riding down the street and running over people. Yeah. Anyway, the quarter has really, in my opinion, gone downhill. But you know that really old building, kind of skyscraper that was right there next to the river, that was vacant and dormant for many years?
Yeah, like the trade center.
Well, it's now the Four Seasons.
What? Really?
I think it's the same building.
At the end of Canal Street?
Yes.
Wow.
It is the Four Seasons.
No kidding.
And let me tell you, they have done that up. It's right next to the Hilton.
Yes, that's right.
And so it is, because we were walking by and I was like, and
it's been the trade center for decades.
Yeah. Well, it's now the Four Seasons. And when we were walking to our room at the Hilton, you could look and you could see, like, on the back side that faces the river, they have like this upper deck or this rooftop bar that is just, I mean, it looks. I gotta
check that out. I got to check that out, because that's one of the premium locations in all of New Orleans.
Well, and look, the Four Seasons, they came in and
they would have done it right.
They didn't. They didn't. I mean, they did it right. They didn't skimp.
Well, I had a different weekend or week. Was at the beach,
which you don't really like.
I don't like the beach. A beach vacation is okay for a few days, but I don't really care about. There's some people, like Bonnie, that when they go to the beach and they sit down in their chair and they put their feet in the water and they just feel all anxiety just completely draining out of them.
You're the opposite.
And I'm the guy that's sitting there going, it's hot, it's sandy, I'm sweaty, I'm dirty, there's nothing to do. I mean, I get it. The sound of the ocean. I got it.
There's people everywhere.
It stinks. Yeah, people are walking around on you, and it's just, is there going to be a shark attack or, what? I mean, the big thrill is, yeah, I mean, the big thrill is when a helicopter flies by from, Pensacola or something. And it's just, otherwise, I'm just sitting here, watching, those TV shows at Christmas where it's the Yule log.
Yeah.
And it's nothing but just watching the Yule log. That's what it feels like, only it's the beach log. And I'm sitting there, it's like, I got it. 5 minutes of this, and I'm going crazy.
I'm the same way.
Do this for 4 hours?
I am a total mountain guy versus a beach guy. Give me something to do, hiking, biking, rafting, whatever. I'm climbing, rappelling, throwing the Frisbee. Sitting in the beach, getting sandy is just like, ugh.
Well, the other thing is when we go, and I think we talked about first week, which I didn't know that's what it was called. But
well, no, you weren't there for first week.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying is normally we would go for first week, which is in May, and you would think, hell, it's summer, it's hot, it's miserable, but the difference between kiss my.
You sound like such a joy to be
Shut up. No, I'm getting a Debbie Downer thing, whatever. In the heat index from May to July.
Was it super crowded where y'all were? Where'd y'all go?
It was crowded. It was, we were staying, we were at a big house because we had a lot of family. It was basically like Thanksgiving at the beach, where all the family gathers together. But instead of it being Thanksgiving, it was summer at the beach, and it was great. And I enjoyed being around everybody. And the word was out from the beginning, don't give Dave a hard time because he ain't going to the beach. I'm going to watch Netflix. I'm going to take a nap. I'm going to read a book. I'm going to ride the bike. I'm going to do anything. Y'all need me to go to the grocery store.
Exactly.
Happy to do it. More than happy to do that. Look after the dogs.
How many trips did you make to Walmart?
Sure. Oh my
or
God.
Publix?
I made all of them. Yeah, I mean, they basically assigned me a cashier at Publix because I was there 3 times a day. And going to the grocery store at the beach is just a total crap.
Now I will say this: I do
experience.
like going and snorkeling and diving for sand dollars or crabs or whatever. I mean, I like because the water in. I know where you were, the general area, Destin, all the way 38.
Right, yeah.
Wait, was it dirty this year?
No, it wasn't that bad. It wasn't like Galveston, or Biloxi. But it had that.
Was the seaweed up on the beach?
It wasn't that bad, but there it was.
Well,
and so you're swimming through that, and you're like, I'll put up with it.
That's not always there. I mean,
Right.
typically speaking, you've got these pearly white beaches that are well groomed and maintained, and you generally have crystal blue water. I mean, I think they're the best beaches in the U.S.
No, they're the best beaches on the Gulf of America, but they are not. But don't even tell me that the beaches in California are a million times better.
Some of the
than
sand,
on the Gulf.
some of the sand out west in California is not great.
What makes the beach experience great in California isn't the sand. It's that you get monster waves, and it's interesting and entertaining.
Okay. Now,
even if you don't go out in it.
I agree 100% on the waves, but I'm just talking about in terms of just the sheer beauty of the beach and the water.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
It's beautiful to look at, and it's a slog to Sherpa your crap down there to the beach. And then really when you're hot and exhausted and hungry and the whole bit, no, pack it all up and slog through 6 inches of snow, which is what it feels like, to get, it's just, I can't stand it. It's such it's not, the idea is I'm being relaxed, and this ain't doing it for
Do you know what,
at all.
To me, is one of the best times to go to the beaches down there on 30A.
There's nobody there.
Is like October and November. or really, I like those a lot better, especially in October, because it's not really cold. It's still kind of warm. The water you can still get in because it's been hot
in October.
It's been hot for most of the summer.
Yeah.
So the water's not.
I've heard that. I've heard late September is the time to go.
It's really, really nice. The only problem is that you've got to pick a time that you can handle football season. If you're a football guy, and most of us from the South, we're football guys, right?
Right.
So you just got to pick your weekend, and if you can find you a weekend, it's wonderful because you can go to the great restaurants, and there's nobody there. You get seasonal pricing.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing is, when I said it was Thanksgiving during the summer, we were making. I say I didn't cook anything, but I was. But by God, I went to the Publix, so I was in there somewhere,
which is important.
It ain't nothing. But it was basically a mess hall because there were so many people staying at the house that we were just cooking.
Because this was Bonnie's sister and her brother and all of their.
It was all the grandkids.
Were your kids there?
No, it was Bonnie's side of the family. Her brother couldn't come, but everybody else did. And literally everybody.
Now, Olivia didn't go, did she?
Yes, she did.
Oh, she did. She came down.
Oh, yeah. And I got to tell you this story.
Oh, that's right. Right. I knew that she was coming down for the second half.
Yeah. This child has the worst luck with
travel,
with air travel.
Right there with my daughter.
Well, I don't know about your daughter. I can tell you, if you're on a trip and Olivia, who I love, but if you're on a trip with Olivia, your flight's going to be delayed. It's going to be canceled. It's going to blow up. So something's going to happen. There's no way it's going to happen. She just has the worst luck. Let me tell you this little story. She's scheduled to fly back to New York, and I think they're flying out of Pensacola.
This was Saturday?
Yes, she's supposed to fly out Saturday at 2:30 in the afternoon, which is not a great time. So on Friday,
that's just when the pop-up showers start.
That's just how. Yeah. So she calls on Friday and says, "Look, can y'all get me in? Is there any other flight?" No. The only flight out Saturday is at 2:30. Okay, well.
Now, was she flying out of Panama, or was you going all the way down to Fort Walton?
I want to say Pensacola. I wasn't there for this. This is just the story. The story is related by me.
Surely she was flying out of Fort Walton.
You think so?
Not all the way to Pensacola.
Well, I don't know. Well, let me tell you the story. You see what you think. So since she's flying out at 2:30 in the afternoon, the thinking was, well, no big deal. She's going to stay up late and hang out with her cousins one more night. And so they're farting around watching Netflix or whatever. It's 1:00 in the morning on Saturday morning. And she gets an email from American Airlines that says, your 2:30 flight has been canceled, but no worries. We've rebooked you for a flight that departs at 5 a.m. 4 hours from now. Which is the rip-off.
Oh my gosh!
Trick of
I almost did a
spit take on that.
Yes.
It's such an obvious. We overbooked, or with some. I won't say the word, but something where we're counting on 2/3 of the people that we booked on this flight not getting this in time to actually act on it. But, Bonnie and Olivia, get it, freak out. And so at 3:00, they're driving to the airport.
So Bonnie is asleep at 1.
Bonnie, yeah, 1 a.m.
So Liv wakes up. She's awake.
Thinking, and they thinking they got all morning to.
She's had a few drinks.
To get ready to
she's
go.
Like, holy
and all
crap.
of a sudden it's like, my flight leaves in 4 hours and it ain't here. It's, wherever it was, Pensacola or Fort Walton, whatever it was. So
a nice little drive.
Yeah. And we got to put all of our stuff together. Bonnie's thinking, well, thank God I hadn't been up drinking with everybody else, because this would have been a real problem. And so, she makes the 5 a.m. flight, and not many others did. And then the flight gets delayed. She's in Charlotte. She gets to Charlotte, and as soon as she hits Charlotte, it's like you can just spend the day in Charlotte to the point where she gets into and they routed her into New Jersey. So it was as if she'd left at 2:30.
Does she normally fly into LaGuardia or JFK?
Normally LaGuardia. Yeah,
but now she's in Newark.
Yeah, now she's in Newark, and they've got all those staffing problems that normally Newark's an okay place to fly into until the last year or two.
You know, they've had all the issues with the what's it called, the ATS or whatever it is, going on the blink.
Yeah.
Just shut down while planes are in traffic. Where'd my computer screen go? Well, I don't know.
Don't hit any airplanes on your way down.
Really look out to your right and left.
Yeah, hey. Because there's virtually no commercial aircraft in the Newark area. So I mean, how dangerous can it be?
So
that was her horrible story.
How long was she traveling?
Well, I mean, they're leaving the beach house at, I don't know, 3:30 in the morning, and she got into Newark at 5 p.m. Feels like a long day. You know, when you got
14 hours.
No, when you didn't go to bed early because you thought you were going to stay up and hang out with your cousins. So, good times for her. So, okay, another thing that happened in the last 28 days, I'm sure you were paying close attention
Jeff Bezos got married. Have you?
Yeah, in Venice, yeah.
It's caused a lot of stir.
I
don't understand
I didn't see what the big deal was.
I mean, if a guy makes
that kind of
he's
money,
the richest man in the world.
Yeah.
Who gives a damn what he wants to spend his money on?
Yeah.
I mean, these people are like, oh, it's grotesque. Got people living in squalor. Well, that's life. I mean, is it Jeff Bezos' responsibility to give all of his money away to every poor person? I mean, the last time I checked, we still are a capitalistic society. I mean, if the guy wants to spend his money
until November in New York.
Actually,
which is another story.
Okay, so my daughter Sydney read me the list of all the things that guy supports, which is just absolutely bonkers. Yeah. I actually believe that he will not win. I think that Mayor Adams will win by a landslide.
Not
Adams is going to get every Republican in the city, which may not be a ton.
All 5 of them.
Yeah, and he's going to get all the main Democrats that voted for Cuomo.
Well,
he was a Democrat.
Who are the people who voted for Cuomo who won or lost the primary? I think they lost, and I think they lost overwhelmingly.
If you
take them, if all you're adding is New York Republicans, all 5 of them, there might be 7.
I think
there might be 7 Republicans in New York City.
I think Adams is going to win.
Okay.
He's for abolishing the police altogether.
Yeah.
Free everything.
Well,
we're just going to give everything free. Who pays for that? Is the government supposed to just write checks?
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to tax the rich.
Tax the rich.
All we got to do is tax the rich who are staked to New York and not allowed to leave. They're going to fly.
Quiet Riot had a song about taxing the rich.
They're going to fly into Florida and Texas. They ought to have some kind of passport immigration program for people that are fleeing New York and going into Florida and Texas. Surely they have a treasury agent from the Texas Treasury that meets them at the airport and says, wait a minute. We're not so sure that we want you here. We'll take your corporation, but you, I'm not so sure we want. So, it's the old thing of Californians moving to Texas and bringing their blue policies and blue attitudes with them. Like you got to leave that at the door.
So my daughter,
there's a reason you're coming.
My daughter works for a tech company in
Austin.
In Austin, and of course they had the No Kings and the anti-ICE protests, and so she she's conservative, and honestly, most of the people that she works with are conservative.
Really?
Yeah.
In Austin? in a tech company in Austin. That surprises me.
Well, okay, right. As a matter of fact, there's even one of her very best friends is originally from Mexico. She's here illegally. I mean, legally. She's become a U.S. citizen. But, even she is conservative. But putting that aside, so I was like, well, I said, I asked her this weekend, I was like, well, how were the protests? And she's like, kind of uneventful. She said, but we have this girl who went to Alabama. She's a relatively new employee. And I said, was she in a sorority? And she was like, yeah, she was. But she said, she asked me the other day, she said, I swear I think she was high. She was like, I'm just so tired from the weekend. And Sydney was like, for what? And she was like, from all the protests. And Sydney was like, oh. She goes, aren't you tired too? And Sydney goes, no. And she goes, well, you went, right? And Sydney goes, no. And she's like, well, why didn't you go? Why would you not be there? And Sydney was like, that's really just not my jam.
Not my jam, man. Which is a good enough reason.
Yeah. Well, so anyway, Sydney had this conversation with just the two of them on the elevator. And so Sydney was able to tell all of her other coworkers, she was like,
steer clear of Whitney. Stay away from Whitney. She's going to turn everybody into HR by the end of the year.
Well, she was telling me that she showed me a picture from like a Zoom meeting where this girl decided to have a Zoom meeting when they were all working from home like one day, and the girl came on the Zoom meeting with her hair in a towel.
Yeah, but why not? But why not? Because everybody knows you're at home. Everybody knows you're wearing pajama pants.
Called her out. Sydney said when the boss called her out in front of everyone on the Zoom, the response was, "What's the problem?
Yeah,
I'm at home.
I'm at home. This is what I do."
And they were like, "Okay, just because you're at home, you're supposed to be working, and it's not professional. This isn't get your hair done day." Anyway.
Yeah, but when you think about it, so what? As long as I'm getting my work done,
I think the idea was she was not getting her work done.
Well, but that's a different problem than having your hair up in it. It's kind of like, why do you have to dress up to go to work? Why do you have to wear nice clothes? You can go in jeans and a t-shirt and practice law in exactly the same way. You're still as smart as you are. You're still as clever as you are.
I had a meeting on Friday with some attorneys on a case. They came out to the office, and I didn't put on a tie, but I had on a nice dress shirt and sport coat and pocket square, and one of the attorneys was like, "Well, you sure look dressed up," and I was like, "Man, I wear a golf shirt every day." I said, it's not
I am dressed up for this, pal. Should have seen me on yesterday.
It's not every day that I get to at least put some of my clothes on anymore. So, I'm going to dress the part and look at least lawyerly every now and then. Hell, last week I got to go to court twice and got to put on. So I was like 2 days in a row. 2 days in a row I had suit on. So
you have to dust them off first before?
No. But I did get to wear my tuxedo this weekend, which I really enjoyed. So I always like getting dressed
I do
up.
too. I do too. I like to wear tux.
Yeah.
I feel a little ridiculous when I wear one, but I'm also like, it's just how it ought to be.
Yeah.
It's just, let's do it. Let's go with it.
Exactly.
Let's go with that look. I really don't know a better way to explain it. Another thing that happened, right about this time a week ago. See, back on June 1, we were talking all about Ole Miss baseball and how close they were and how great they were. A week ago today, your LSU Tigers win the College World Series. Yet again, we're running out of places to put the trophies.
I have to admit, I was really torn because obviously as an Ole Miss guy, LSU is one of our arch rivals, most hated rivals. And, Sarah was like, well, who are you pulling for? And I was like, as much as it pains me, I said, I just can't pull for that jackass coach in Coastal Carolina.
That's next thing on my list, as you can guess.
That guy.
What a jerk.
Well, first of all, before he even got kicked out, when we were watching the was it the Friday night game or the Saturday night game where it was the pitcher's duel 1-0 game, the LSU won?
Yeah, that was the Saturday night game.
Okay,
yeah.
So we were watching the game that night, and I was, Sarah's like, she was actually watched the whole game with me. It was a great game, I thought, but I was telling her, I was like, this coach is such a jackass, and I said, and she's like, what do you mean? And I said, I watched a video, I saw it multiple times, of him just getting so angry because people were mispronouncing the Chanticleers.
Yeah.
It's not the Chanticleers, it's the Chanticleers. Get it right.
It's so important to me.
You're disrespecting our team.
That nobody's ever heard of.
Right. I mean, exactly. And so, it's just like, dude, lighten up. And anyway.
It's college baseball. You're going to be famous for about 10 days, and then nobody's going to hear of you for another 10 years.
Of course.
Come on.
And then after he gets kicked out, everybody wants to, oh my gosh, can't believe this happened, blah, blah. Okay. Even if the ump, and granted, in my opinion, the umps should.
We need to tell the story about what happened.
For the listeners. Okay. I'll let you tell it.
Yeah,
tee it up.
The College World Series, you go through eliminating 6 out of 8 teams. The last 2 teams that are standing, they play a best of 3 series on Saturday, Sunday, and if necessary on Monday. Game 1 Saturday, in the very first inning, the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers coach
Sunday
is
this is a Sunday game.
This is on the Sunday game. Yeah, is game 2. He's arguing balls and strikes in the dugout. And I need to point out, in Major League Baseball, you get away with a certain amount of chirping from the dugout. You can show some attitude. You can pimp your home runs. You can argue with the umpires. You don't have to run to first base as fast as you can when you draw a walk. There's a certain amount of latitude that's given to the coaches and athletes because they're damn pros and you're just an umpire. College game is very different. The umpires are treated like your dad that's former military drill sergeant or something. And if you start pimping a home run in college, they'll throw you out of the game. And the umpires are pretty damn strict in college baseball.
Ask Tennessee.
Yeah, just ask Tennessee. So they're the Coastal Carolina is arguing in the dugout balls and strikes, and that's one of the rules. Is you're not allowed to complain about balls and strikes. You can complain about a lot of things, but that's just in the rules. It's one of the things that you're not allowed to do. And so he
did get some leeway though.
Well, the umpire, so he's doing that. The umpire turns around, tells him to knock it off more or less. This fool comes out of the dugout. You damn sure can't come out of the dugout to argue balls and strikes. And the umpire tells him twice more, shut up and get back into the dugout. He doesn't do it, so the umpire throws him out. Now, he's throwing out the head coach of a team that's in the finals, like the entire season, 128 teams in college baseball or whatever it is. It's down to 2, and you're throwing out the head coach in the first inning of the game.
Elimination game.
In an elimination game. Well, this fool doesn't take it that well. It's an elimination game. If Coastal Carolina loses this game, it's over. Season's over. And he doesn't take it so well. So he runs up to the umpire at home plate and really starts giving him the business. Well, now he's not only thrown out of game 2, he's thrown out of game 3. Then the first base coach, who is the first assistant coach for Coastal Carolina,
well, he's thrown out of the next 2 games.
Yeah,
which would include
that's what I'm saying.
The third game, but now it's going to include the next 2 games.
Yeah,
next season.
But what he's thrown out of is this game and whatever your next game is, which would be game 3 if you can get that far. So he's done for the season. He will not be coaching again for the season. And his first assistant, who's the first base coach, runs in there, and he doesn't get thrown out immediately, but on his way back to first base, he has a few words for the umpires, and so they throw him out. So now they're out of their top 2 coaches.
Which you really, in college baseball, you really don't have that many coaches.
No, you don't have that coaches. Now, as a practical matter, how many decisions do you really have to make as a coach in a baseball game? Kind of depends. Sometimes a lot of
depends on who the coach is and what the team is.
Yeah, it depends a lot. And as this game turned out, there were not a whole lot of buttons to be pushed in the game. LSU won it, and that was it. But the talk for days and days and days was how can an umpire throw a guy out, or how can a coach lose his composure that badly when it's his job to coach the players so that they don't lose their composure, and instead he's the fool that acts out.
So I know you saw the post-game interview or his explanation / non-apology apology. The thing that I thought, dude, did you even test this out before you went out there and said this shit? I mean, because, he's, first of all, I disagree. I think I disagree with what he said. I think he was lying because he was saying, I couldn't hear. There's 25,000.
That is
bullshit.
That's baloney.
Yeah, right. So he says, I was just trying to get an understanding of what the call was.
No, you were not.
Well, of course, no, you weren't, because you admitted in his non-apology apology, he admitted, he goes, well, when he said that, that he was arguing whether I missed the call, and he was like, well, you missed 3 calls.
Well, so that blew up that alibi.
Right. Well, I mean, you know that you're not supposed to do that. I mean, so, deservedly, you got the boot. I mean, so it's not the ump's fault. Now, you would like to see, as a baseball guy, I mean, I would like to see, it's kind of like in the 7th game of any series. You don't want to see the series determined based on,
a call.
And so I guess as a sports enthusiast and fan, you would have hoped that the ump would have given him a little bit more leeway. But be that as it may, it was the rule. The guy knew it. He crossed the line, and he got tossed. So whatever.
Well, the most famous game I can remember getting decided by a call was in the NCAA basketball tournament when Michigan's Fab Five, and it comes down to
I've got PTSD.
It comes down to
I was
the
a
very
Fab
end.
guy.
Michigan's got the ball. I can't remember if they're down by 1 or 2, but there's 12 seconds left on the clock.
Poor Chris.
Whatever it was. And the Michigan player, who I'm drawing a blank on what his name is, he calls a timeout. Problem is, they don't have a timeout.
Yes, I know.
And when you call a timeout, you don't have a timeout. That's a foul and a turnover. And so basically the game is over because the guy called a timeout, and you're like, well, let him put up the shot. I mean, let him run the play. Let's see how it would turn out. No. Game's over. You watch the entire NCAA tournament all year long to watch this, and we're just going to end it on a stupid technical foul. Sorry, that's how that goes. The people that was
one of my favorite teams ever in college basketball. The other favorite team that I had from college basketball was the Phi Slamma Jamma. Love me the Phi Slamma Jamma, which had,
they
by
had
the
a
way,
bad end too.
Yeah, they did. Which, by the way, had 2 of my all-time favorites, but really my all-time favorite player ever.
Clyde the Glide Drexler.
And I became a Portland Trailblazer because of Clyde the Glide. Sure. He was the epitome of class and style and grace, and man, that guy.
So how did they lose to Jim Valvano and NC State? The true I guess that was the first true Cinderella winner in the NCAA tournament.
Well, obviously after you look back now and Jim Valvano died, you almost kind of feel like that was just meant to be.
Yeah,
it was just meant to be.
Well, you were talking about hurting yourself. You might need to go on injured reserve because you were pulling for LSU to win. I kind of had a similar experience after LSU knocked out Arkansas on some of the craziest plays I've ever seen in a baseball game.
Let me just tell you, I know that you're pulling for your team.
Yeah.
But you're a baseball guy.
And you couldn't help but feel sorry for them, even though you had to kill them to advance.
That left fielder.
Oh, my God.
That is truly.
For those who didn't see it.
Truly one of the most heartbreaking moments that I've ever witnessed in sports. Yeah. That guy will never recover from that.
For those who didn't see it, Arkansas shortstop, who's an all-star shortstop, could have gone for a double play that would have ended the game, and instead he throws to third, which gets you one out, but it doesn't get you the third out that gets you out of the inning. And so LSU is basically on life support. They've got runners on first and second and hit what looked like a pretty routine fly ball to left.
The score is 5-3. Yeah. There are 2 outs and 2 friggin' strikes.
Yeah.
And we got one pitch for Arkansas to finally, and Coach Van Horn to finally
advance to the they advanced to the finals, and they lost on that crazy drop ball earlier.
You're right. What was that, like 2006 maybe?
Yeah, but anyway, what happens to this left fielder is Bear Jones for LSU hits what looked like a pretty routine line drive to left field, but the Arkansas left fielder kind of took a bad route, kind of slipped. And
the first thing he did is he took a step back, which is not necessarily the bad thing, because the worst thing that you want to see, I mean, you certainly don't coach. You don't want your first step to automatically be in.
Yeah, you don't want the ball going over your head.
So he takes
judge it.
He
go
takes
back,
a step back
forward.
And so but even the fact that he took a step back, okay, and he corrected
himself. That's not what killed him.
I mean,
but anyway, what happens?
He just missed the ball.
He misreads the ball somehow, and he slips.
Yes.
And the ball hits off of his shoulder, his right shoulder.
Goes right past his glove.
That's not that. Even that wasn't fatal if the ball had just stopped there after hitting him. Instead, it cannons like it was like an artillery shell.
It looked like a half-court 3-point shot in basketball. It had an arch on it.
It ricochets off his shoulder, and it's like the ball has a mind of its own.
By the way, the ball was really hit directly to where he was standing, where you normally stand in left field.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like 2 feet from where he normally stands.
So the ball is running away from him as fast as possible to the corner, as far away from him as possible. And meanwhile, the two LSU players plus the batter they're running around the bases as fast as they can. Bear Jones ends up on second base because he's not that fast when finally the ball comes in. And the very next player for LSU comes up, hits the ball into the second baseman's glove.
Who snow cones it.
But it hits the top of his glove and then goes over and just kind of trickles into center field. Bear Jones comes home, wins the game. Arkansas is out, and Arkansas's left fielder, I mean, his children could have been strangled in front of him, and he couldn't have been more distraught. I can't remember the last time that I've seen an athlete crying, sobbing, broken, just absolutely broken, and it went on and on. And of course, I couldn't get enough of it.
You remember they made a movie similar to this?
I don't.
Yeah, called Pet Detective. Laces Out.
Yeah, I missed that.
With Jim Carrey. You didn't see Pet Detective?
No, it was not.
So the kicker for the Dolphins, missed the game-winning field goal because the placeholder, who holds the football, didn't have the laces out. And so eventually he becomes a tranny, and he kidnaps the dolphin from the team. And,
how did I miss it?
The Pet Detective and Jim Carrey, right. But anyway, Sarah and I were like, both of her, she and I were watching the game, and we were like, this is totally Laces Out. I mean, this guy's damaged for life.
I literally thought this guy's going to be 60 years old, and it's going to be just agonizing. The only guy that I can think of has a worse experience is the Vanderbilt guy that hit Chucky Mullins.
No.
That guy will but that's a complete different.
That's
different. On a different order
and
completely.
I think who, by the way, that's Riley Gaines' father.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah. So he's not my blood relative cousin, but he's closer to me than my cousins. He played for Vanderbilt, and he was very good friends with Gaines, and so Gaines goes every year,
twice a year,
and cleans the grave with a toothbrush and sponge and all that. But no, that's Riley Gaines' father. Absolutely,
that is a heartbreaking story.
But
it really is.
Well, it is. But I mean, he did a lot with Chucky, and they had this bond before Chucky died, and so I mean, to me, that's different. I mean, the Mets ball through the glove in the World Series. I mean, how is that not? I mean, that's basically the same thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Billy Buckner, I don't think ever lived that down.
No,
I think he passed away. So that's
he may have been poisoned.
Yeah.
The New Yorkers are kind of rough.
No, that was the Red Sox. Billy Buckner was the first baseman for the Red Sox.
Who is it I'm thinking of on the
Mookie Betts hit the ball right through his legs.
Yeah, that's right.
Game 6 of the World Series.
Yeah, he was with the Mets.
Speaking though of we were talking about Game 7s. I could not help but notice barely out of the corner of my eye that the NBA Finals were playing at the same time, and that used to be the NBA used to be something that I watched somewhat.
Now I watched.
I cannot.
I watched the entire series.
Did you
between
really?
The Knicks and the Pacers.
Oh, yeah. That was
a great
pretty
series.
Well
by the way.
watched, but then the finals with Oklahoma City and the Pacers.
Terrible.
I would like to go back and see what the ratings were
because
worst. It had to be the worst ever.
Absolutely.
It's just the biggest pile of who cares. Well,
yes.
We're about out of time. I can't believe that we didn't get to, I don't know, something happened in Iran. I can't remember what it was. A lot of
poor little Greta.
Yeah, well, poor Greta. There's a funny story that dropped today on our.
Oh, really? I hadn't seen.
We probably have another hour-long show just to talk about the interesting things that have happened in the news, but
seems like we're having some technical difficulties here, guys.
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah, I'll save the notes and we'll get back to that next week. But man, it's good to be back in the saddle. It's
great
to see you, see the team,
absolutely back,
and get on with it. And we won't be here next week because of July. That's a joke. I'm kidding.
Okay.
I'm kidding. We'll be back
next
July
Sunday.
6th. Yes. No.
I'll be in Texas next week.
God.
No, wait, no, I won't.
America.
No, because Marge has work on Sunday, so we'll be back on Saturday. We'll see you guys next Sunday.
July 6th,
same
5:30.
time, same place.
All right.
All right.
On that bombshell.